Tyronius, I come to you as a broken man today. I had a pretty big parenting fail recently.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. My 6-year-old is a disgusting little human being and doesn't wash his hands. And so I'm probably sharing more than I should, but you know how 6-year-olds are. They get dirty, they go to the bathroom, they never wash their hands.
Yeah.
Well, he ended up developing a parasite because he doesn't wash his hands, I guess when he goes number 2, I don't know. Anyway, causing some digestive issues, and so we got some medicine for him that's supposed to kill this parasite. And which, side note, I didn't know. Apparently, a lot of people are living with parasites in their intestines. They just never know about it.
Yeah,
because there's no issues.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's issues with him. So he's taking this medicine. He's got to take it 3 times a day, and apparently it tastes horrible. Like the doctor warned us, like this stuff's awful.
Is that liquid?
It's like a liquid.
Yeah.
He's got to take like 6 milliliters or whatever of this disgusting liquid. And as you can imagine, with a 6-year-old, every time it's a fight. And we're trying to figure out the best way to get it taken, and you know, I think we found a system. It's orange juice, helps him. Takes a shot of the medicine, drinks some orange juice, eats some gum, he's good. Well, it just so happens that, again, 3 times a day, he's got to do it before he goes to school, which is early. Yeah. Bus picks him up at 6:55 every morning. So first thing in the morning, the last thing you want to do is guzzle down some nasty medicine. Yeah. And again, this is me sitting here thinking through in like calm mind. Yeah. And giving him every excuse in the world.
In the moment.
In the moment.
Oh.
You know where this story's going.
Yeah.
So it's, 6:48. Bus is about to be here. He's not fully dressed yet. Still finishing his break. It was just the one. It all started because I didn't wake him up early enough. That's really where this. If I'm taking extreme ownership, I should have woken him up earlier. Yep. I didn't wake him up till too late. So he's sitting there trying to finish his breakfast. I'm sitting there trying to force this medicine. He doesn't want to do it. It's a fight. So finally I'm getting upset. I'm yelling at him. I'm not yelling at this point.
I yell.
Getting upset. So we do it just like we do it every time. I squeeze the little syringe into his mouth. It's not in there a millisecond, and he just spits it out everywhere. All over me, all over the table, and I lose it. Like every parenting lesson book, everything you've ever read about control your emotions, take a 30,000-foot view, none of that meant anything at this moment.
Yeah.
I took the syringe. Hopefully, Child Protective Service does it. I didn't throw it at him.
Yeah, threw it.
I took the syringe and I just freaking spiked it on the table.
Yeah.
He starts crying.
Yeah.
I start yelling. Horrible scene. Horrible scene. And here's the scary part. Here's where I'm gonna be real with you for a second. As I'm sitting there yelling at him, a very small part of me, and this was actually kind of like thinking back, I'm like, well, that's kind of scary. A very small part of me enjoyed it. A very small part of me enjoyed that power because I could see how terrified he was as I was sitting there yelling at him. And it was the weirdest first time I've experienced, because I've never had power over anybody. I've never been a parent. It was very odd. It made me realize, to a macro scale, power drunk, I guess is the term. Right? I don't know. It was really weird how a small part of me enjoyed it.
Can I challenge your observation of that you enjoyed it and that it was power? I know you, and I don't think it was that. And the only reason I can say this is because we went through it yesterday. We had a teaching moment with Luca and a little bit of Gia too. But what I think you felt was he is so upset that he's going to remember this and think about this moment next time we're in this situation.
Yeah.
Like, I see a reaction and I know that I got to him. Now, whether it's right or wrong, in our situation, I reacted kind of the same way. I was out working in the yard all day yesterday, and the bigs, Luca and Gia, my older two, have been wanting to drive the side-by-side, right? And I've let them kind of practice and do some things. And so they asked, hey, can we just drive it around the house a couple times? I was like, yeah, but slow, go around the house. I need to be able to see you. And so they did a couple laps, and then, you know, they started arguing because Luca wanted to drive, and then Luca drives, and, you know, he goes, and then I hear Gia scream, and then I hear,
yikes.
And I'm
ripped
like,
up that Tesla.
I know. And I'm like, what is going on? And he's parked right in front of the mailbox on the side by side. And I'm like, what is, and like Gia jumps out. She's like, I told you not to. And he's like, you told me to do it. They're like fighting on whose fault it was. And he had tried to pull up next to the mailbox to get the mail. Well, he literally just scraped the whole thing, broke the mailbox cover off, the whole deal. And I go up to him, and I'm like, and again, I react. Not how I wanted to do it. I react. And I'm literally like, and it was to the point where I couldn't say anything, and I could tell I was like tensed up like this. And I was like, and I caught, and I was like, go inside before I say something that I'm going to regret. Yeah. And so they go like, and they were terrified. Like, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I've ever seen him that mad. Like, I don't know. And like, I'm like clenching my fists, like walking over there. I was like, get inside. And I had that same feeling. Like when I saw them visibly like distraught and like, oh my gosh, this is a really big deal. I had that same feeling like, okay, they felt this.
Yeah.
They know this is a big deal. Like it really was. Now, what's important is the follow-up.
Yeah.
Right? How you handle that after that, right? Yeah. After that initial moment.
Yeah. No, and in the moment, and I wouldn't let it go either. Like this was a 3 or 4 minute ordeal. Oh, yeah. It wasn't just one yell, I was done. I kept coming back to it.
Yeah.
And again, it was this weird part of that I'd never felt before.
Yeah.
It was like, I am so powerful. You are in such fear right now.
Yeah.
That I can say anything I want, and it was the weirdest.
Again, not always the right way, and I'm not saying that yes, that's how you're supposed to do it. That's not what I'm saying, because same with me. But you could see it sink in. Like, he felt it. He felt that me doing that was not good, because I don't like that reaction.
Well, no doubt. And again, once things calmed down, once he got on the bus and left.
How was that, by the way?
We didn't leave on good terms. Like, I didn't even say bye to him. I just sent him out the door. Like, I was still that hot.
Oh yeah. I left him in their room for an hour after that. I was like, and this is how I know, like, they're like really, really upset. I was like, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
They need to feel this. They need to know that there's consequences. I know that they didn't mean to do this. It wasn't malicious. Like, it was an accident, but it was a decision, and it was a not smart decision that they did. And there's consequences. There's damage done.
Yeah.
And they need to know that. And so we went in and we talked. And I mean, this is pat on the back here. Like, we walk out and Tiff's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I thought you were going to handle that way worse. She's like, I would have handled it worse than that. Like, I did not think that you were going to go in there with like the composure and the delivery that you did. Yeah. But like, again, it's how you handle it. And not, when he gets home from school, like what that conversation looked like. And all,
I did have the luxury of that. I felt horrible when he got on the bus, because I'm like, he's going to go to school. That's the last thing he remembers.
Yeah.
How long is that going to affect him in the morning? Yeah. I did have the luxury of time in that I didn't have to talk to him immediately. So I had all day to calm myself down, sit there and think through. And apparently I'm not home when he gets home from school. He gets home at like 3 o'clock. And apparently the first thing he said when he got off the bus to my wife was, my tummy was hurting. That's why I spit up the medicine. Like, she didn't even say anything to him. And I don't even know if she knew this. Maybe she did. But it clearly affected him that much. So as soon as I got home, as soon as I got home, I apologized to him. I said, there's no excuse for me acting that way.
Yeah.
I did all the things you're supposed to do. Yeah. But man, it was a weird, that was my takeaway, was how scary that was, of how good it felt to be that.
But here's a question.
Overpowering.
Did he take the medicine the next morning?
Yes.
He guzzled it down, didn't he?
Unfortunately, it had the intended effect. I wish he would have just spit it right back in my face.
It worked.
Yeah. So anyway, that was one of my many parents.
That's what Darren always says, right? Is it's like, sometimes you have to coach through fear.
That's right. So, but it was a good it ended up being a good moment, because again, it allowed my son to see me apologize. It allowed him to see me react in a horrible way, and that's not how you – because, again, thinking back through, I'm like, okay, could have woken him up earlier. Okay, I don't know, maybe I squeezed this medicine in his mouth too fast. I don't know. There's so many different things I could have done different. And so that's what it helped me out, that I won't repeat that. But that was, I guess, the silver lining was now I have that teachable moment for him. Yeah. He could see me react in a way you're not supposed to and apologize for it. So anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
and again, I think parents, we got to give ourselves grace sometimes. Yeah. Got to let things go. There's a lot of guilt, but don't let that guilt stack up onto, more and more ineffective ways of handling and teaching your children.
So all you perfect parents out there are just judging me.
Shut your mouth.
That's fine.
Shut your mouth.
You shut your mouth hole. Not what we're going to talk about today. We teased what we're going to talk about today.
This is actually why we're not. Too many Bens and Tylers out there.
So we teased it last week, and I don't know if we're going to do this consecutively, if like the next 5-6 weeks is going to be this series, but we teased last week. We wanted to dive in because you hear it all the time. America's the greatest country in the world. America, right? All this pride for this country. And so it got me curious. Okay, are we really? Is that something we just say because we've said it forever and we feel that we are? Are we being completely biased? Or are we truly, by statistical data, are we truly the greatest country in the world? And today's topic is going to revolve around education. Where do we rank in the world? What are our issues with the education system? How do we fix it? Again, we're two dudes that don't have policy making experience and or power, but we are two dudes who have kids in the school system, and we went through the school system ourselves. So I think it's okay for us to have an opinion on this. What I'm saying. It's not like we're sitting here on high saying we have the fix, but we do certainly have opinions. But before we jump into that, I do want to thank our partners really quickly. Choctaw Casinos and Resort. We talk about it week in and week out. The greatest place to watch playoff football, which is going on right now, is the League Sports Bar up there. Tyler's talked about it. He had a contractor at his house the other day and ended up winning, what was it, $100,000? Won $100,000 up at Choctaw Casino. So we say it all the time. What other entertainment venue can you leave with more money than you started?
And it's not just. I think this sometimes too when I see these promotions out there. It's not just this gimmick to get you up there.
Right.
They're actually giving it away, and real people are actually.
And even if you don't win money, it's an escape, right? Yeah. It's time away from the kids. And
I don't know if escape is the healthiest way to describe it. It's a recharge.
Moment away from reality.
It is a recharge.
Yeah, there you go. So get up there, have yourself a night, 2 nights, a whole weekend, whatever. And then our second partner, Sleep Number. Again, we say it week in, week out. It will spoil you. The greatest sleep technology known to man with their Sleep Number 360 smart beds. It's really cool. They sent me the other day, I'm sure they sent this to you, they emailed my 2022 year in review.
Yep.
So it literally takes statistics every single night that you're in that bed, however many nights I was in that bed last year. And
I remember being highly disappointed in myself.
And it gives you real feedback, gives you real metrics so that you can hopefully improve from year to year. I just think it's such an awesome, nerds like me who are into health and fitness and recovery. There's really nobody competing with them in that realm. So thank you, Sleep Number. Go get yourself sleepnumber.com or a local Sleep Number store. They're everywhere. And probably everywhere that you're listening to this. Okay, education. Let's dive in. So the Program for International Student Assessment tests 15-year-old students around the world and is administered by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD. In 2018, when the test was last administered, obviously we had COVID, so I think that threw off a little bit. So 2018, these are 2018 metrics. Care to guess, out of the 79 countries that participated in this testing, care to guess where the U.S. ranked in science?
In the 50s.
No, we did a little better than that.
40s?
11th. 11th out of 79 countries in science.
All right.
So almost top 10.
All right.
What about reading? How do you think we did in reading?
I would say reading, we are probably top 20.
Yeah. 12th. 12th overall in reading.
Yeah.
And then math was the last section. What do you think we did?
We're going to be below 30 on that one.
Okay. We were right at 30.
Okay.
Number 30.
Okay.
So 11th in science, 12th in reading, 30th in math. For an overall ranking, once you factor all these little statistics in,
18.
25th in the world.
So math carries some weight, huh?
Yeah, 25th in the world out of 79
Okay.
countries. Post-pandemic stats. So obviously, we all know the pandemic wreaked some havoc on our education system. According to the National Assessment of Educational Progress, aka the nation's report card, which tests a broad sampling of 4th and 8th graders, so 450,000 students over 10,000 different schools. So
Dang.
a really wide sampling of our kids here. 26% of 8th graders were proficient in math. 26%. That's down 34% from 2019.
Down from 34 or down 30?
Down from 34% in 2000. Okay. So we were at 34% proficiency in 2019, now at 26% of our 8th graders proficient in math. That's a key word there, proficient. Not like outstanding, like just
passing
or okay.
Yeah.
Only 26%. 36% of 4th graders were proficient in math, which is down from 41% in 2019.
Okay.
31% of 8th graders were proficient in reading, and 33% of 4th graders were proficient in reading. So less than a third of our 8th graders are proficient in reading. Even less than that are proficient in math.
Jeez.
What do you think about that?
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. And the final statistic, what do all those rankings, how much money would somebody spend on a ranking like that? You're spending a lot of money on this. You'd think you'd get some good results. So the most recent numbers for K through 12 spending reveal the U.S. spends $14,891 per public school student per year, which equals a grand total of $762 billion per year.
K through 12.
Spent on education, K through 12. That ranks us. So we're 25th in the world on actual performance, 4th in the world in how much we spend on our education. So spending the 4th highest amount of money in the world gets you 25th place.
So that's okay. So that's one of the challenges I think that we don't acknowledge is that we're spending the money there how do we fix this education problem that we have? It's a challenge that's on the decline too. I mean,
numbers aren't improving.
Yeah. Our education is declining. The challenge is growing.
Yep.
But we're spending the money on it. So
it's not a money issue.
No,
at least not the way it's allocated.
What I would ask though, right, is the context too, is in relation to cost of living. What are we spending per student in relation to cost of living? Because, if cost of living in, Ireland is a whole lot less, I don't know if it is or not, but is a whole lot less, and they're spending more, or Norway or England or Spain, whatever. If cost of living is less and they're spending less on education but getting better results, I think that's important.
Yeah.
But we're spending enough money.
Yeah.
So
then what's the problem? What do you think?
That's what I'm saying.
From where you sit, you've been through the school system yourself. You have kids going through the school system.
Uh-huh.
Again, we're not sitting here saying we're God of education. We have all the answers, but I have some thoughts on what the problem is. What are some of your thoughts?
So I can't say what the problem is and what it's not. I'm not in it every day, so I'm not going to pretend. Perspective, we talked about it last week. Teachers, at least in the area that we live, are handcuffed and not allowed to do the job that they signed up to do. I think that there are so many, there's so much red tape, there's so much bureaucracy, there's so many challenges with kids, with parents these days, that we have teachers that have said, hey, listen, I'm gonna forego making a good living. I'm gonna make $50,000 a year, and I'm gonna pour into these kids. And then now these teachers are not allowed to do that. Mm-hmm. So they're like, why am I making no money if I can't do and make the impact that I wanted to make? Like, I chose a career that I knew wasn't going to make a lot of money, and I chose to do it anyways because it's important to me. But then now you get into actual schools, you can't discipline, you can't hold kids accountable, you can't really, honestly, what's a challenge is you can't teach kids differently based on how they receive information. Like if they are not with the class and they can't keep up, send them to somebody else.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things that are just broken, like and distracting. So for example, in our school district, there's a handful of kids, and we love our school district. We absolutely love it. But there's challenges like there is everywhere. Is if a kid is violent, teachers can't do anything. Teachers literally can't do anything. So now, like if a kid has an episode, the kids have to go outside and wait. Like there's instances where there's 3 hours that kids are sitting in the cafeteria waiting to be able to go back into their class because this kid has destroyed the room because the teacher can't restrain him. Can't do anything. Okay? And can't send the kid out to go to the principal's office because that's discipline because he has some condition or he has a disability or and I'm not saying that like we shouldn't acknowledge those things. But now if his outburst, his reaction, his undiscipline, him just being an a-hole because his parents are a-holes, like you can't do anything now as a teacher. So you're handcuffed. I think that's part of it. So the time spent learning actually in school is minimized. The other thing I think that's a big challenge is there's two things. Focused on testing because that leads to funding. And so everything is geared towards that. And then very little is geared towards physical education and actual movement. Science is overwhelmingly in support of getting kids out and active and how that correlates to learning. Mm-hmm. We don't do it. Like we don't let our kids, okay, we're going to work for an hour and we're going to go out and we're going to do something active. We're going to do PE. We're going to teach this. We're going to, not to mention all the things that you learn from sports and all that. But we're grind. Here's a processed meal. Grind. Okay, now you got 10 minutes to go outside and play. Now grind. Because we got to be here and we've got to prepare them for testing. Yeah. And you spend so much time getting the kids that are behind just caught up that the kids that are actually like in good places, they can't progress to the levels that they have potential. Because all we're worried about is how you do on these tests. And here's the STAR test. Yep. And that's where I think we get lost is we've incentivized teachers just to do that. Mm-hmm. And if it's a difference of, hey, you know, we all tested this and I am eligible for this bonus, that $2,000 bonus is a big deal. And I'm not saying that's what they do, but like that's a big deal. Yeah. If you're making $35,000 a year. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff you said in there. Let's start with the teaching aspect. I had a front row seat to this for 5 years, my wife, and she does part-time teaching now. It's called reading intervention. So you said kids that can't
send them off.
Do it, send them off to somebody else. So my wife is that person they send them to. My wife takes kids one by one that are behind in reading. Yeah. She helps them with their reading. But before that, she was in the classroom full-time. She was a second grade teacher. Yep. So everything you're saying is spot on about how teachers are funded, how school districts are funded, how things are incentivized. Yeah. So I think, to me, as I look at this problem, there's a lot of different problems, but I think maybe that's where the problem starts, is the system is a one-size-fits-all metric of how we measure success. Yeah. And how we measure success is how many kids are passing whatever state test that we've deemed as being the appropriate test to get.
How many kids are prepared for the next level.
Right. And that, to me, is one of the problems that we need to address, which is, here's some standardized tests. If you don't make good grades on this, we really basically have one metric to determine success in the classroom. And it's, how did you do on these tests? Yeah. And how did you do on any test is basically how we measure success. Mm-hmm. So to me, that one size fits all is a big issue. Yeah. And again, I know that there's so much tied to funding based on that one size fits all. But to me, it's not a holistic approach. How am I raising this child and setting them up ultimately for life success? Yeah. Am I giving them a test and saying they're a pass or a fail based on how they do on this one test? Or am I teaching them skills of leadership, discipline, community, how they treat other people? Why don't we start measuring those life skills along with grades? So grades are important, yes. And I'm all about outcome, and I'm all about rewarding effort, and I'm all about that. However, I think if we put everything in a kid's whole success in school based on how he did on some test, to me, you're missing the mark.
Totally.
To me is how is he treating people? To me is how is he leading his friends? To me is how is he, how is he, there's just a lot of different metrics to me that you could measure a student's overall performance. So I think that's from where I sit. And again, I know it's much easier to sit here on a microphone and say this.
Yeah, totally.
And much more difficult to implement.
Yeah.
But why can't we, like some things that I wrote down, leadership, grit, resilience, compassion, and empathy, knowledge, physical health, and grades. Why can't we measure a kid's success based on all that as opposed to did you get an A on this test or not?
Yeah.
So to me, that's the underlying problem that trickles over to a lot of different other things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a highly complex system.
Yep.
Like our government, like healthcare, like all these major challenges that we have. And so to say, hey, here's one answer to it, I think is a little bit ignorant. So there's a lot that has to be done to change the trajectory of how our education system functions and performs. With that being said, I agree with you. Like there's a lot that can be taught. Now, also, question is it an educator's responsibility to teach the students grit, leadership, service-mindedness, community, or is that the parents?
It's definitely the parents. Unfortunately, the reality is a lot of these kids, number one, you're spending most of your day in school.
Yeah.
Number one.
Yeah.
And number two, for a lot of American kids, unfortunately, it is the responsibility of the teacher. The teacher is the most positive person they're ever going to interact with in their entire life. And that's where this becomes tricky, is you can do all this good for a child for 8 hours, but then when they go home and then when they spend time on the weekends and when they spend time at home in the summer, you can't control that. So I would answer, in utopia, it's the parent's responsibility. Yeah. In reality, unfortunately,
two totally different deals.
I do think it's the
there's
teacher's
only
responsibility.
And I know they spend a majority of it, but there's only so much time. You can only spend so much time on math, only so much time on reading, only so much time on literature, only so much time on science, only so much time, on social stuff. I mean, there's a lot to teach kids. Mm-hmm. There's a lot. Here's what I observe, and I was a part of the system too at this age, is you are finding a decrease in performance in education starting at a young age. So instead of teaching the kids, pouring more into them, we've now just we lower the bar, make it easier and easier. Like my kids, like they don't have homework. There's no homework.
Like none of your kids?
No, like none of the kids in the school district have homework. At least elementary school. They do not send homework home. And it's like, well, what is that teaching them? Like that's now you just got to go do sports and free time. That's all you have as a kid. Like I get it. Like that needs to be a part of a kid's upbringing, but there also needs to be time management skills, right? There needs to be fighting this urge of procrastination, like real life skills that I do think that homework brings. So we're just lowering the bar, dumbing it down so that our scores look better, so that our graduation rates look better, so that you know what I mean? So it's easier as opposed to, no, like we're going to keep the expectations the same. And if you fall short, then we're just going to teach more, teach harder, give you more opportunities. Okay. Like Saturday school is not a thing anymore. We used to go to Saturday school. Yeah. Summer school, I don't know if that's a thing anymore. I haven't heard anybody talk about it. Now, my kids are a little bit young for all that stuff. But, I mean, if you didn't cut it, you had to figure out a way to make it. So, to me, like, did you guys take the high school exit exam when you were in high school? So, this was something that they had just started when I was in high school. You'd start taking it your sophomore year, and it was like you had to pass this test in order to graduate.
Yeah, I don't remember, honestly. Maybe.
And so, I mean, as frustrating as it was, like there should be some basic levels of math, reading, writing, and science that you should be proficient enough to pass a test in order to do it. And if you start taking it your sophomore, like I passed it my sophomore year. It's not a difficult test, But like, I don't know if they still do that anymore because kids were probably not passing it. And they were like, well, our graduation rate sucks, so people aren't going to want to go to our district. Now, we don't get tax revenue. I mean, there's this whole deal. Like, that's what like people lose sight of is school districts and schools in particular are graded. They have grades. When you're looking at Realtor, if you're looking at Trulia, if you're looking at Zillow, if you're looking at wherever that house is, whatever school that feeds into, there's a ranking. Mm-hmm. Like my wife and I love that house, love that property, not going to it, school sucks. Based off of like, okay, that's an 80, it's a 76 for the junior high, and that's an 82 for the elementary school. Not good enough for our kids. We're going to go somewhere else.
Right.
And so schools and cities are like, it's this arms race to build the best schools with the highest scores and best facilities to get people to move in. It's like college recruiting.
Yeah.
So that now they get tax revenue, property tax revenue,
right,
sales tax revenue. Like it ultimately always comes back to the money. It's not about preparing our kids to contribute to society when they're adults.
Yeah. And I guess that's my opinion is less focus on grades. Still have a focus on grades, but more focus on life skills.
Yeah.
I think another problem is, and you mentioned it, you touched on it, is what's home life look like? Mm-hmm. We think of Darren. He went to, 8 or 9 different elementary schools by the time he was in 5th grade, something like that. And not because he had a bad mother at all. It's because they kept having to move because she was trying to support the family. So you've got a lot of examples of that. Like when they go home, there's not a lot of support. I'm not saying Darren didn't have support. I'm just saying, think about how many kids don't have
Consistency.
Consistent support. How many kids fall behind in the summertime because they're spending 3 months at home with nobody pouring into their education.
Yeah. Or nutrition.
I mean,
you look at
how many kids go to school and that's their only meal they're going to eat for the day.
Yep.
Because it's a free, paid for by the district lunch.
Yep.
So there's nothing you implement is going to fix everything.
Yeah.
But I do think that it almost seems like, from my perspective, it seems like we found a system however many years ago, and we've kind of just stayed on that same. Like we're not critically thinking as times have changed, as life has changed. How can we upgrade? How can we make tweaks? Yeah. So another thing you mentioned is, these teachers aren't getting paid much at all. So I'm of the belief, just like our police, don't defund the police, provide more training, provide more resources, make it more difficult, make it a more desirable job.
Yeah.
So if you make teaching a more desirable job, if you pay higher, but now it's more strenuous to become a teacher, my thought is you're going to attract a higher quality individual who's going to want to implement and teach these life skills. Yeah. So if the demand is higher for a higher, level teacher, and you're also going to reward that with. Now think about the people there, because right now, who wants to go make $50,000 a year and get handcuffed by discipline and get handcuffed by what you have to teach? And in some of these states, be told, everybody's got to have the same outcome.
Yeah.
Who's going to want to sign up for that?
Yeah. So
to me, that's another issue that you need to solve for, which is how do we, because we've got the money. Our government shown just print more money. That's what we do. Why not be smarter about how we allocate those funds, which is, and again, somebody sitting here who's in education, who has a complete opposite view, they're probably just thinking like, that doesn't work. I'm not sitting here trying to just come up with problems. I'm just sitting here thinking, how can we critically think through this? Because again, the way we're doing it from a perspective of what percentage of our 8th graders are proficient in math, it's not working. And again, there's a lot of things that are going on at home, I'm sure that have to do with that. But clearly the system is not, it's working good enough, which is sometimes worse than it's not working at all.
Well, and we talked about it early in the podcast, is the disparity between suburban schools and inner city schools, right? Yeah. And again, it comes back to money, and it comes back to, the property tax income in inner city areas is a whole lot less than these up and coming suburban areas. So they have less resources. I mean, talk about desirability from a teacher, like more challenges, more poverty. I mean, there's so many more challenges in inner city. And then you go out to suburban North Texas, and you've got high school after high school building world-class athletic complexes.
It's not an even playing field.
That are $150 million.
Yeah, it's not an even playing field by any stretch of the imagination.
No. So how across, because we're talking about the country right now. We're talking about, is the United States the best country in the world? And we're talking about education. This isn't like Frisco, Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. It's great schools, great facilities, great everything. Like, that's awesome. They have their own problems still. Yeah. But like, we're talking as a whole. And he's talking about the number of schools that are on the level of Frisco, Texas, or Southlake, Texas, or Westlake, Texas. That's a small percentage. Like, across the board, how do we raise the bar of the educators and attracting that talent, as opposed to them going into some tech job or going into something else, which is cool, but like, how do we make that a desirable career?
I love, and you didn't really said that, but this is just who you are. How do we raise the bar is what you said. Unfortunately, we're heading in the direction of how do we lower the bar so that more people can succeed.
Yep.
Your perspective, my perspective, probably a lot of people listening to this, is how do we meet the challenge as opposed to bring the challenge to us or bring the challenge down to our level.
Yeah.
I see these numbers and I think, okay, how can we improve this as opposed to how can we lower the bar so much that these numbers look better?
Yeah.
Another thing that I think about is, for me, a lot of issue was I could care less about some of the subjects that I was learning in school.
Yeah.
And so I think I graduated with like a B, A- average, something like that in high school. I don't remember what my GPA was, but many of the classes that I struggled in, it wasn't because I was a bad student it was more of a lack of caring for what the subject even was.
Yep.
So there was a lack of passion, a lack of desire to even learn.
Yeah.
So teachers weren't trying to tap into, and again, it's not all about me, but it's less about tapping into the kids. How do we teach them how to learn as opposed to what to learn? You need to learn this because the state told me to teach you this. Yeah. Or maybe should we tap into this kid's desire to learn?
Yeah.
And find something he is passionate about. Neil deGrasse Tyson, do you know who that is? He's a famous physicist, astrophysicist. He was talking about this recently. Didn't
he talk about if the universe is gay?
Yeah. That was pretty good. That was a pretty good answer. But he was talking about, he's got very strong opinions on education, but he was talking about, he had a 3.0 GPA in high school, which is a B average.
Yeah.
And he said if somebody had walked into one of my classrooms in high school and asked the teacher, which kid in here is going to go off and do big things one day, he said, I would have been the last person that would have been picked. Because I did not fit into the box that particular school system had that would deem kids successful going through that system. I was interested, from the age of 14, he was interested in astrology. And he's turned into becoming this ultra successful astronomy. He has 25 honorary PhDs. Like, he's gone off and done some amazing things. But by the box and the letter of law that we put our education system in currently, he was not of this wide sweeping success.
Yeah.
And so, to me, is it even possible to have 25 kids in a class and be able to teach to them one-on-one and to their strengths and weaknesses? Probably not. Yeah. But there's got to be a way that we can the net can catch more people as opposed to less.
Yeah.
That's what I think about, because I think about the same as you. This isn't just, maybe in the city I live in, things are great, and it is voted one of the top school districts in the city, and that's awesome. Good for me, good for my kids, that's great. But I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about where the country is headed.
Yeah.
And where are we going as a nation together? How do we bring up those around us that are as fortunate and aren't going to be able to move into a school district that's like that?
That's right.
That's the question. And so we don't have the answer to that on this episode necessarily. But to me, I mean, just a couple of just ideas. Like I said, a holistic evaluation. Don't just only base success and failure on grades. Let's start bringing in some more life skills into the equation and really grading on that.
Grades, right? Okay, so just to stick on that for a second. Grades are a reflection of your preparation and execution.
Yeah.
So I do think we should be evaluated on.
I'm not saying you're not. I'm saying that's one component.
Yes.
The other thing that grades incentivize, I don't know about you, I was a master of cheating.
Oh, really?
I learned, you never cheated?
Oh, I knew you didn't have a soul, so you could care less.
To me, it incentivizes cheating. If I have to get a certain grade to pass this class, I'm going to do anything it takes.
Yeah.
Am I going to take the hard route and actually learn the stuff At the time I was in high school, no.
Yeah.
I'm going to figure it. Now, some classes I didn't cheat on everything.
Yeah.
But if it was like Spanish or something that was really difficult, I'm going to figure out a way to make it happen. If that's the only way you're going to measure my success is by passing your grade or not, I'm going to make sure I get there.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not saying do away with grades. So that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying make that a component.
Yeah.
But then let's sprinkle in some other things.
There has to be an evaluation, right? Because there has to be a measurement of growth.
For sure.
For
sure. I'm not saying
progress,
eliminate
right?
grades. No.
But I agree with you. Back to my point is I think the bar of what we expect our students to do needs to be there. But we then have to expect from ourselves as parents and teachers is we have to expect more as well.
Yeah.
There has to be more input, and there has to be more from our administration in providing resources, right? Where are dollars allocated? We spend a crap ton of money on education, but how efficient is it?
Right.
Is that spending?
Yeah.
Right? I would argue it's probably not super efficient. But I do think that it's important that, hey, look, there's certain things, and you brought up a good point, is like, it's just not interesting. Like, how do we create curriculum that resonates with the appropriate age group in a way that and not every kid is the same. That's what's hard, right? That's what's hard.
Yep.
But I think when you start getting at least at the junior high school level, it's all right, well, here is where you'll use this. Do a better job of that. Like, hey, like if you need to learn, this type of math, and we're not teaching you math that you're going to get on the STAR test, and we're going to teach you this Common Core way of doing it because it's faster, so you can do the math that's on these. No, bull crap. Like, you're going to use it here, here, and here, and here's why it's important.
Yeah.
And then any of the just nonsense stuff, like then they become electives.
Right.
Right. But there has to be a standard.
Yeah. How many math classes did you take that you don't even sniff using those skills that you learn?
No.
And again, but there's going to be some kids, they use it every day, right? They're in engineering, they're in whatever.
But that's where it becomes elective. That's where you start, pursuing something specifically that is going to relate to your specific career path. But there's got to be just to hold a conversation, because there's stuff, and I think of, here's one that I have a really hard time with is history. And you see it on social media and TV shows all the time, is the absolute neglect of our country's history is really unfortunate, because we're now not learning from the mistakes that we've made in the past. Mm-hmm. We're not learning from the successes that we've had in the past. Like, it's really important to know these things. So now we are destined to make the same mistakes that we made 150 years ago, that we made 50 years ago, because we don't teach history anymore. It's really important that we understand where we came from to understand how we got here. And then you have some insight on where do we go from here. And that's something to me that because we're so filtered and we're so what's the word I'm thinking of? Censored, right, on what we learn, and this is offensive and this is not. No, let's talk about the bad stuff that we did as a country. Mm-hmm. Like, let's not neglect that. Let's talk about those and we understand, like, look, these were mistakes that we made as a country, and these were the bad things that we did, and these are the bad things that other people did that we stepped in to try to rectify, right? And let's celebrate those things. Mm-hmm. Because I just think that we have lost. We only teach things, or we don't teach the hard things, and so the pride to be better as a country is just lost. Mm-hmm. Like, a little competitiveness with England, with France, with China, with some of these other countries that do really well educationally. Like, there should be a healthy competition, because I'm proud, because I know who we are as a country, because I've learned about it.
Yeah. So again, we can't necessarily solve anything by sitting here on the microphone. It's definitely solved by how we lead ourselves and lead our families. Yeah. I would just hope that educators, people in the school district, people in, that do have power to make these decisions, are just at least looking in the mirror from time to time and evaluating and realizing, or looking at, are we headed in the right direction?
Yeah.
Are we improving?
Yeah.
Is there some things that we could be doing a little bit different that nobody's tried before?
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen? Let's try it out.
Yeah.
So,
and I think if you're a teacher out there, here's my encouragement: is you make a difference in one kid. That is exponential growth.
Yep.
Because think about what that one student could potentially do and the impact
Absolutely.
that he could make on other people the next year in his or her class.
Right.
So just stay the course. Teachers out there, you are paramount in our country's long-term success. You're not always celebrated. You're not always recognized. But please, please, please just know we are appreciative of you. We're appreciative of what the sacrifice that you're making for the kids of our country. Just encourage you to go in every day and realize how important your role is.
Yep. We got some work to do. Appreciate you guys. Let us know your thoughts. Well, what's your opinion on how our education system is currently running? Those of you that have kids, those of you in the education system, give us some feedback. Let us know. We always want to learn. We always want to improve. In that way, we mentioned this last week, but we appreciate you guys who are sharing the podcast. The best way, the biggest thing you can do to help us out, text this episode to a friend, post it on your Instagram, post it on your social media. You guys sharing the podcast is really the best way. We don't do a lot of advertising. I think our Instagram page is really our only advertising that we have. So it's imperative that, and we're appreciative of you guys that are sharing the podcast and helping us grow. So thanks, guys, so much. Hope you have a great rest of your week, a great weekend, and we will see you next week.